Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the space where we reimagine Africa and reimagine living. Welcome to I Am Africa Live, the place where we elevate our self worth, our self image, and our net worth. I am so excited. And as you can see, I'm in my Vivo dress. I am wearing my Vivo dress. And today I have the honor of speaking with Wandia Gishuru from Kenya, and she's a daughter of Africa. And this is the space where we spend a lot of time introducing daughters and sons of Africa. Wandia is a sister, a daughter, a friend, and an aunt. And right now, she is sitting on the world stage as the creator of Vivo fashion brand, and we are so honored and delighted to have you in our city in Atlanta. And I'm honored to have you here today. Welcome, Wandia.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, Jean. Thank you. That was just a wonderful, wonderful introduction. And I'm just so happy that to be here, to be on your show, to have met you. I met you in Kenya, but then I got to meet you again here when you came to the launch. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I really love it. And today, what I wanted to do, a lot of people might not know you in Atlanta, people outside of the Kenyan circle. And I would like to, number one, introduce you to them because you have a store that I believe that they should visit. and
Yes, please.
and an online presence that I believe the world should know about, right? But more than that, I would like us to go into you as the person who decided to dare to do something really big, something that I'm not sure you always planned to do, and you're going to let us in on the secret, and
Mhm.
just to show who you are and this journey, because we are consciously aware that you are doing something many of us have dreamed of, and that you are doing it in a big way and first.
Wow. Right. Where do we start?
I know. I just wanted to bring first that to everybody's attention that before you were in fashion, you had another life in international development. Talk a little bit about that, and not necessarily the whole story, because I know it probably is a long one. There's no African girl who has ever shown up in my space with a short story. But I'd
Already.
like to know how you came about choosing international development and then maybe the transition into fashion. Was it always there?
Not at all. I mean, and uh, it's funny, I think it was Steve Jobs who said you can always connect the dots going backwards, but not necessarily going forwards. And I think when I think about my sort of career choices and even what I studied, because I studied economics
Yes.
in, for my undergrad, and I don't, at the time it wasn't because I was clear that that's what I wanted to study, but it's what my father had studied. And my father was a
Mm,
civil servant, um, you know, in the 70s and in the 80s. And I think a lot of the conversation at home, he was very interested in economic development, very interested in business and entrepreneurship, never really got any of his businesses off the ground. He was more of a dreamer and less of a doer. But the kind of conversation we'd have when he would be home, he wasn't home that often, would be sort of what was happening in back in Nyeri, where he came from, what he was doing to sort of try and help entrepreneurs there. And he also would travel quite a bit with his work. So he'd go to other countries and come back and say, oh, Kenya needs to learn from what's happening in India and what's happening in Chile and places like that. So I think there was always something in the back of my mind. My mother was a teacher.
mhm.
Um, so we had reasonably intellectual kind of conversations at the dining table. And I was always sort of more drawn to doing something that I
Uh-huh.
felt that I liked and was
Yes.
interested in, but I was sort of doing more than just giving me a paycheck. So I tried other things, but development allowed me to travel, go around the
Yes.
world, meet people. I worked for the British government out of London for several years, and then for the UN out of New York. And I would travel. I'd be on a plane pretty much every month. and I went to countries that I would never have probably, dreamed of going to. Some even in Africa, I went to Liberia, I went to places like Guatemala and,
Yeah.
and and Cambodia, places that, yeah, growing up, I mean, those were not the places Kenyans would visit very often.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, at some point, the distance between me and the people that were supposedly whose lives were being impacted by the work that I was involved in was just too far away. And I
Wow.
felt, I mean, policy work's important, someone has to do it, but I felt like I needed something that was more tangible and that I could sort of see that if I worked really hard today, it made this difference.
Now
Um,
let me ask you, did you feel restless about it? Was it urgent? Was it just over several years? What was it?
I think to be honest, it was an age thing, and it
Mhm.
was, and I say that because a lot of my friends went through a similar phase. Like a lot of us had, a lot of us had pretty steady careers, corporate
Right.
jobs, or whatever, and we got to our sort of early mid 40s, and and I think we all desired more flexibility, more freedom, more control, um, and the ability to manage our lives a little, better around the things that matter to us. So especially if those
Right.
of us who had children and wanted to be a little more flexible in terms of how present we were for our kids. Um, I definitely, I mean, if I thought I was going to work less, I,
Yes.
that hasn't happened
You
at all. I've
you
never
picked
worked
the
so hard.
one.
Yeah, but I do feel I get to make a lot more decisions. I'm able to make a decision today and execute it on it almost immediately. Whereas when you work in a big organization, unless you're at the top, and even then, everything requires a lot more time, a lot more
Right.
people. And now that Vivo's getting a bit bigger, I'm finding myself having to involve a lot more people, and things are taking a lot more time than they did
Yes.
in the early days. When you're starting a business, you're basically wearing most of the hats, and so you can make a decision and execute day one.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I think what was fascinating to me, and many people know that I am a life coach and I help people birth their dreams. And
Yes.
one of the things that was interesting to me is when I read that you and a friend were sitting in your house or in her house on a sofa in the living room, and this idea was born. What made you actually do it? Because so many of my clients have done that. I have
Yes.
done that many times, and I can't say that everything that I have said on someone's sofa has come to life.
Well, there's many, many things I've said on sofas that have not come to life. So it's not like, I mean, and there are areas of my life that I look at somebody else with in awe of
Yes,
how well they, take forward their plans and their dreams. And I have a lot of procrastination in certain areas, but I think
yes,
I think this one, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's something you talk about, or either on air or with your clients, but that feeling when you're feeling pulled towards something as opposed to you're pushing.
exactly.
Like you feel like this flow, like you sort of
Yes,
you think of something, and then the next day something pops up on the television that's like speaking to the thought you just had, and then 2 days later you meet somebody and they're like, oh my god, I've been thinking you should do X, and you're like, oh my god, like this, somehow this feels like it's meant to be, and things kind of open up. It doesn't mean that there's no hurdles,
yes,
but it feels downstream.
right, right. I
It
have
feels
felt that before.
it feels in flow,
Yeah,
and I think that's what happens with a lot of the things that I end up doing. They
right.
sort of, I find myself kind of drawn in that direction, and then multiple things happen that seem to just open it up. And I'll give you an example.
Uh-huh.
Um, when Anne Marie, who's the friend that I started Vivo with, when her and I, um, came up with the idea. We're completely green. Like neither of us had run a business, neither of us had anything to do with fashion. And in the beginning, the idea was much smaller. We were going to just focus on dance and fitness and exercise clothing. Um, and we were going to do it all online. We didn't need a store. We were just going to, put up images and people would come. And very quickly, everyone who reached out or who we spoke to said, but can I touch it? Can I try it on? Can I feel it? And so I started inviting people back to my house to try stuff on. And my house suddenly, slowly became this shop. Actually, it wasn't slowly, quite quickly became a shop. And my kids were like, no, there are boxes everywhere. Like, what happened to our living room, I live in Nairobi, very close to the Junction Mall.
Yes.
And and they were just about to finalize their second phase. So in the beginning, it was only half the size, and we were like, well, you know what? Maybe we can get a store. Why don't we get a store? Let's go find out. So we walk into the management office, and we say, oh, we have this business, and it's athleisure, fitness, dance, da 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 da. Do you have a space? And the guy's looking at us, and he's like, yeah, you know what? Actually, I have one space still available.
Mm-hmm.
And so he takes us to see it, and it's small. It looks okay. We still have no idea what we're doing, and he says, well, if you want it, give me a business plan. Give me your business plan. Come back with that as soon as possible. And so I go home and I literally like Google business plan and download a template and fill it in. No idea what I'm doing. And we get the space, and I find out a couple of months later that there had been a waiting list, like a long waiting list for that space. And somehow he liked our story, he liked us, and we just jumped the queue. But we didn't
But the story that you have is the story of many women and men who have an idea, and there's something about how you show up to ask for your idea to be considered that enables you to see it enables a person to see how excited you are about it, and they can almost get the vibe of what your future might be.
Possibly. Yeah, maybe the energy. They say a lot of things in the energy. Yeah.
It really is in the energy. And I think what I wondered the gap that you were filling at the time. Was it difficult for you to get that kind of clothing in Nairobi, the athleisure? What was it? What was the
that was the premise. That was the thesis, because we were both active. She's much more active than I am, but and we were struggling. Like we wanted, dance sneakers, and we wanted yoga outfits and stuff like that. And we couldn't find it, or what we could find was very expensive.
Right.
So, we were like, well, we can't be the only ones. There must be other people. Like there's a movement towards more healthy living and wellness and stuff like that. Now there's so much more available.
Exactly. And the thing is, I have coached several hundred women who say the same thing. It's like they know that there's someone else who needs it. And I think it ties into this this phrase that I saw written about you. You said you wanted to dress Africa and dress the world. Now, that's a big declaration. At what point did you declare that you wanted to dress Africa and dress the world?
Actually, the declaration is that Africa should dress herself.
I see.
And Africa should dress the world.
It's
bigger than Vivo. It's bigger than me.
Exactly.
And really, that vision has evolved over time.
Yeah.
And because the more that I, understood the business and the industry and the sector, and I looked at the state of that industry on the continent. And East Africa is probably, even more so than West Africa. North Africa is a little different. I mean, there's a lot of, textile garment manufacturers across Egypt and Morocco and places like that. But in East Africa, I mean, it's hard to get exact numbers, but I believe, less than 5% of everything we wear is made in Africa.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
Less than 5%. So
that's a very small number.
We outsource all our dressing, and most of that is secondhand clothing that
Oh,
comes
yes, I remember.
in container loads, of which half is not even sellable. So half of it ends up, no one ever sees it. It ends up in landfills, and being a real mess for the
Mm-hmm.
environment. And the other half, finds its way to markets. And then I would say roughly that's probably about 70 to 80%, and then the rest is new imported product, a lot from Asia, and then a few, European or Western brands. And
Right.
yeah, and yeah, but the bulk of it is still made in Asia, and
No,
so for me, that's a real waste. It's a real
it
waste
is.
opportunity for a continent that is desperate to create jobs, to create employment, to give people income generating opportunities. I'm like textiles and fashion and clothing and the manufacturing of it, the designing of it, the creating, the content, the marketing, the distribution. I mean, all of that through the entire value chain there are millions and millions of jobs. Um, and that's how countries like China have, grown so quickly. It's because they manufacture for everybody else.
So now,
Um,
when you look at it from that perspective, how does it feel to see that you are making a dent in that shift towards
yeah,
something?
it feels like we are, at least we're able to show that it's possible. Do you know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like
Exactly.
it's like being a black woman in the US and getting to the top levels of an organization. You may still be one of the few, but at least you're showing people that it's possible.
It
When
is possible.
Obama became president, it became possible because, until people can see it, I remember when he was running and everyone I would speak to says, "Oh, America's not ready. America's not ready." I'm like, "Well, when are they? Who's going to say when they're ready?" It's not like you wake up one day and there's signs saying we're ready.
Yeah.
Someone has to do it, and then you show everyone else that, yeah, this is actually possible. It's not impossible.
Yeah. And that ties into the idea that even if you have an idea, whether you have the capital to start it or not, there's something bigger than that, which is the belief in oneself that causes you to move in that direction. What was that? Because you said my dad talked about economic development and he dreamed more than he actually did. It could be a lot of reasons. Maybe he had his family already. He had a job to protect. There's so many reasons even today why people are not taking the leap.
Hmm.
But even if whether you have the money or not to do, or you have the opportunity or not to do it, there's something that continues to burn. Were you intentional about feeding that belief, the desire? Was that a practice of yours already? Or was this something that just moved in the direction?
You know, I'm guessing it's multiple things,
Hmm.
and I think sometimes it's not that you're, well, maybe some people are. I mean, maybe some people are just born with just this really strong conviction and belief in themselves.
Yeah.
I think in in my mind, or in my past and my current, uh,
Hmm.
I kind of need that to also be reinforced by other people. So
Oh,
it helps me to have people who hold up a mirror and say, "Look, Wandia, you can, this isn't crazy. This is." I mean, you do have people saying you are crazy. That's crazy. Even now, even this move to open up in the US, I have people very, very close to the business who were like, "I don't think that makes sense." You know what I mean? Like, why? Why? You know what I mean? We're doing okay. We're growing. That we haven't finished. We haven't opened all the stores we can open.
In Africa, right?
Like, why go to the US? And I mean, I think, for some people it was too scary, or it was like too complicated, and you're too tiny, compared to this big America. And yeah, and then there are others who are like 100% go for it. So I mean, it's not that you're going to find absolute consensus, but I do think you know, you can find, you need people on your in your corner, and you
Are you
need people.
intentional about finding that circle?
Yes,
Oh, wow. Did you
yes,
hear that? She just said yes,
yes.
definitely.
Yeah, I'll keep talking to people until I find the people who are sort of speaking to my, you know, to that part of me. And I mean, that doesn't mean a fan club, because, you know, there's some people who are just like, anything you say and anything you do, they'll just, my mother's one of those. My mother will just be like, of course, Wandia, you know, anything you do is going to work. So do it.
Yes.
I need people who are like, you know what? Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think about this. You know, I'd sort of, have you considered these aspects? But absolutely, you know, if you measure, you know, if you sort of take these measured risks or whatever, I like I like having that kind of conversation. Um,
And what's really cool about that is that, and it's what I call the mastermind. This is a group of people who are around you who have some have expertise in different areas that you have never been interested in, but they have input in your life. And what happens is collectively they become a mind.
yeah,
You, them, and you can create this big idea because you have this amazing circle. So
I
I
like
like the way you said,
mastermind, my mastermind. Yeah,
right, they are your mastermind.
yeah.
Michelle Obama calls them her kitchen table cabinet, I think,
Okay.
something like that, right? And it's this,
I think we all do it. Like, I definitely have, I know which of my people to
mhm,
call first in which situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's a financial one, if
yes,
it's you know, something to do with the heart, if it's something to do with um, you know, like checking myself. You know, like,
yes,
there's a few people you can be like, okay, am I being a complete bitch here, or you know, am I out of line? And who will tell you, yes, you, yeah, that's messed up. Go back and apologize, you know. But you,
right.
I know, and I sort of, yeah, and I think most people would have that, but you know, it's being conscious, being very, like you said, very intentional,
And in
and
finding that
see
circle.
that for other people as well, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the question that I have right now, and I was watching you in last week because, as many of you know, the president of Kenya was here, as well as the private sector of Kenya was here, as well as government folks were here for different pieces of the trade conversation.
Mhm.
And I did attend the first session on Monday morning, and I listened to you and Chibet of her company is called Wazawazi. Did I
Yes.
say correctly? Wazawazi, right? And I was listening to you on the panel, and there was a clarity of message, and it was really getting across.
Hmm.
And the whole time I was sitting there, I kept saying, I know these girls are terrified. I know these girls are terrified because what you're doing is big. And Chebet is opening a store in Denver. And I'll be talking to her, I believe, on Saturday. And then
Nice.
here you are. Not only did you come alone, you invited other brands to join you on this scary journey. Talk about what fear does, especially when it's growing and it's you're going into a space or an experience you have never been in before. What are you feeling? You have the president here, you have dignitaries, you have investors, you have Kenyans, and you're carrying our dreams. And we think we own you.
Oh my God. I mean, first of all, you know, I have been completely overwhelmed by how supportive and excited and enthusiastic and encouraging the Kenyan community, both at home and
Mhm,
here, have been. Um,
mhm.
and it's really, you know, I've sort of had to step back a bit and be like, wow, you know, and I know it's so much more than Vivo or me.
Yes,
I think I think there's a pride that people are feeling, seeing one of us,
yes,
one of our own, a product that has been birthed out of Kenya, a
Yes.
brand that they have seen grow.
Yeah.
Um, and even the president. I mean, and again, like I say, when I talked about the flow, like I don't know him. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know Vivo. Um, he was he was asked to put this on the agenda by the U.S. Embassy. Uh,
Yes.
I had the honor of meeting Meg Whitman a couple of times, and so she's, you know, been supportive.
Yes.
Um, the other thing is we've applied for some U.S. support through
Yes.
a program they run called Africa Trade Initiative. So the synchronicity of these things coming together, because now that we're on their radar, they were
Uh-huh.
able to say, hey, this business that we're supporting has now, taken this big leap. And we were coming to Atlanta anyway. We weren't planning to open that week, so it forced us to speed things up and to get the store open. It's still not exactly the way I wanted it to be, but we managed to
It
open it.
works.
Things don't have to be perfect to start. But I just feel that all of that was just very fortunate. So the gratitude and the sort of acknowledgement that people have really sort of been present and shown up and all of that stuff. But it also comes with this feeling of like, oh my God, we have to make this work now. I mean, there's so much writing on it that's beyond just our own, business plans and
Yes.
whether or not we're able to make a profit or break even. And I think it's standing for more than that.
Are you sleeping at night?
I am not sleeping very much. No, I mean, I'm a terrible sleeper, even at the best of times. And then you pile on jet lag, and you pile
Yes.
on, like a huge list of things that needs to get done, and then now this feeling. And I mean, I'll admit I'm a bit anxious. I'm
Yes.
The Nairobi business environment and the retail spaces are very different.
Say
Um,
more.
so we're used to, we now have, this was our 27th store, and
Yeah.
23 are in Kenya. Um, out of the 23 in Kenya, only 3 are not in malls. So 20 are in malls, right?
Yes.
And different in different parts of Nairobi, different parts of the country. So all of them in different, their own sort of unique demographic areas and stuff. But typically Kenyans go to malls to shop, and so malls are busy. There's a lot of foot traffic. So even if no one has heard of you, so when we opened that very first store at the junction,
Yes.
people were walking in, like we were
And they were
getting
curious.
very curious. And whereas here, at least Atlanta, maybe Atlanta is unique, but it seems that it's not, you don't get that like busy foot traffic on the streets. So people go to places that they sort of know where they're going, and they know why they're going there. And so you
Right.
have to, yes, it's important to be in an accessible place where people can get to, where there's safety, where there's parking, where it's convenient, but they still need to know you're there. And so what's making me a little bit anxious is I'm not seeing the foot traffic of just people who don't know us at all walking in. And we're seeing it a little bit, but it's not nowhere near the numbers we see in Kenya.
Yeah, but you haven't even had a weekend, a regular weekend.
We had
The
last
first
week.
weekend, that was a holiday weekend.
What does that mean? I don't know.
It's that it was Memorial Weekend. We are more interested in the cookout than the shopping.
Okay. All right. I don't know. People said, oh, it's going to be busy this weekend. So I don't know what a busy weekend looks like. We'll find out this weekend.
Yes. So those are some of the things keeping you up. What else keeps you up at night? Considering now you're not only thinking about Atlanta, you have to think about the profitability of the whole company, of all
Yeah.
the stores. And
Yeah.
then there's a new baby, and this baby is born on foreign soil, and you're bringing your product, you might consider African things, into
Yeah.
this world where you're now telling not just the story. It's like I have to tell the story of the product. The product has to meet the standard. There are cultural things that I want to learn. um Americans, we've got to approach them differently when they come into the store. I have worked retail before and I know all those things that the African American woman is very concerned about her personal space, and you have to ask for permission to get it. There's so many things that you're thinking about.
Yeah,
How do you hold yourself?
there's a couple of things that are jumping out. Well, one is that I'm not doing this alone. So I
Exactly.
do have people with me on the ground who are based here or
Mhm.
have lived in the US for a while. Um, and so they know a lot more about any of these things than I do.
Mhm.
But more importantly, I mean, maybe this gives me a chance to say a little bit about what how we got here. Um,
Yes, please.
because we didn't just wake up one day and say, "Oh, let's just go open a store in the US and specifically in Atlanta."
Mhm.
And this is what I'm saying about life and luck and synchronicity and so I mean, what is it? What's the expression? Like luck is when opportunity preparation meets opportunity. You know.
Opportunity, exactly.
So
Mhm.
yes, I mean, we're reasonably prepared for expansion in the sense that we've opened 26 stores and some of them outside of Kenya. So it's not like we've never done that. But we've
Mhm.
gone to Uganda, we've gone to Rwanda, places where people look and sound and seem a lot more similar. But we hadn't really considered the US, although we
Mhm.
do have Kenyans who, when they leave the States to come home on holiday, will come and shop at Vivo. And we're always like, why are you shopping at Vivo when you have so many shops in the US? And they'll say, or Kenyans who travel to the US and come and spend time with friends and family here and say when they're leaving, people say, don't, you're leaving me with that dress, you're leaving me with that, poncho or whatever. And so there's been this anecdotal evidence that, people who live here seem to like, at least some people who live here seem to like what we're doing. But then almost 2 years ago, we met, we were visited by an an African entrepreneur who lives in the US. He's Liberian. His name is Rich Lou Dennis.
I know him.
Oh, you know Rich?
I
Okay.
read about businesses. As a matter of
Okay.
fact, he's on my questions to ask. Not really his. Some of his experiences are on my questions today. I know
Okay.
him. Yeah.
So yeah, I had met him very briefly, like
Mhm.
7, 8 years ago. But then now I sat next to him at a dinner party in Nairobi in November 2023. Oh,
Mhm.
2022, sorry.
Uh-huh.
And I had a chance to tell him more about Vivo and the story and what we're doing, and he got very excited. And then he came. He said, he didn't even have us on his agenda. It was a very quick trip, but he asked his chief of staff, like, I want to go to Vivo. And she's like, oh my God, how am I going to find time? You've got such a packed agenda. But he did find the time. He came, he saw what we're doing. And I think he really was taken by seeing the operations, seeing how vertically integrated we are, seeing the
Mhm.
team that's developing the product, printing the fabric, producing the samples, the factory that's, producing all the orders, how we warehouse it, how we distribute the logistics. So he was like, man, I haven't seen a, a black woman in Africa or in the US who's managing this kind of an operation.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think you have something much bigger here. So again, did I see it? Maybe not. But
Someone else
someone's
saw
holding
it.
up a mirror and saying, look at, this is big. This can be huge. Um, I think you should, and he owns Essence.
He does.
So one of the
And
things he said was, I want you to come to Essence next year, which was July 2023. And he's like, I want you to recreate like a Vivo store at
at
Essence.
Essence.
I had actually been to Essence once, like 10 years ago, but just to listen to the music. I didn't
Yes.
really understand the vendor marketplace and all of that stuff. So
Mhm.
we had no clue. I mean, that was in some ways scarier than coming here because we honestly, we were like, okay, we've no idea what happens at Essence. Like, how much do we make? What do we sell? Like, who's going to buy it? But when and he was extremely kind, gave us a very beautiful space to set
Mhm.
up. So we were very visible, and
My
was it?
friends found you.
Oh yeah, we could be seen. Like we had a full branding opportunity. We had like a
Right.
standalone kind of footprint, and I mean it wasn't big, but it was obvious, you know.
One thing they said to me is she was selling.
And that is what really blew us away because women love the product, you know. And these were not Kenyans, these were not people who had heard of Vivo, they didn't know who we were, but they just liked the product, they liked the size range, they liked the price point. And suddenly, you know, it's like, of course they would, because we've been dressing Black women for, you know, almost, well, over
13,
30
14.
years now. So, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're Afro American, Afro Caribbean, African, we all come from the same space. And so we have this, you know, similar variation in our body shapes and sizes and our silhouettes and our, you know, skin tones, and the same challenges, because global fashion isn't being made for us, you know. So
Exactly.
so
I wear,
yes,
I wear extra, extra large in China. And
ex-
I feel like some type of way when I wear my dress.
and even still, you know, and even if you can fit into the sizing, are the colors that make you pop, are the prints that, you know, other people are as used to or as comfortable wearing. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't wear it, I think everyone should be enjoying bright, bold, you know,
Whatever they
prints,
like.
but it's not what big brands will bet on. You know,
Right.
they'll be much more conservative, much more modest, um, and we're saying why we don't have to. So let's do something else. And I think all those things combined. So because of the response that we received at Essence, that gave us a lot more confidence to say there is a market. And
And it
then
didn't mean that the timeline, the president's timeline was on your mind because you had no idea that this was all happening.
no, we found out maybe 3 weeks, maximum 4 weeks ago, that
Look at that. And you still pulled it off.
oh, but it meant that, you know, everything had to be done super quick. Decisions were being made, you know, very fast, and we probably made some mistakes, but you know, we made it happen.
And the mistakes are the ones that help you learn. Because a lot of us, I always say that I wish I learned from pleasure. I always learn from pain. I learn more from pain than I learn from pleasure. I mean, of course, there's some things I learn from pleasure. But the thing is,
My partner likes to say, you know, you got to use the difficulty. Use
you
the
go.
difficulty.
You do. And part of that is, I'm glad you gave us that insight because I think when we met in Nairobi, that was last month, I believe. Yeah, it was April, end of April. And I remember that's when I first heard that you were coming to Atlanta. And I thought, how come I haven't known this? So you're actually letting in that you just found out as well.
I'll
It
tell you
was,
another little secret.
yes.
We didn't even have the lease on the store yet.
Okay.
Like, we knew we were in conversation, and we had seen the space. I had come here in March
Yes.
because we were throwing a pop-up, and you know, the person who's sort of helping us build out the US business is based here in Atlanta, and I wanted to spend a bit of time with her. And so we'd gone around and visited a few shopping areas and looked at a few stores, and I liked the space we have, but we
Yes.
hadn't even signed yet. So then when this opportunity came up, I'm like, oh my God, guys, we have to sign. Like, this could be on the agenda. So yeah, the
That is
mall
fantastic.
the mall was amazing.
Thanks for sharing that because I don't think many understood that even a Vivo might be working with a 3 week timeline,
Oh my God. Yeah, we
right? A
don't
lot
usually we usually have at least 2 months,
of,
but
yeah.
yeah, this was. This was
Yeah.
great.
Now, to that end, I think one of the things that I'm noticing, and have the part of the reason why I knew Rich Lou Dennis is because I was highly invested in Shea Moisture, highly invested in Honey Pot. I'm one of those people when I hear a story about a business that has emerged, and I knew Shea Moisture was 30 years old. I think 30 years old. It's
Yes,
several years old, right?
yes.
And I get so invested in those products. And part of the pride for me is I've lived in Atlanta 33 years. And I remember when we would go to Target and we would find a section this size with products for Black women. It was usually on the bottom of the shelf. And I remember when it actually turned around, I was at the Perimeter Target in Atlanta, and there was me and an African American woman looking at products on this whole aisle for Black women. And she and I, we both looked at each other and we were having trouble choosing what we wanted because there were so many products and it was a
Wow.
whole. And she said, "Can you believe this is our new problem? That we
No.
have so much choice, right?" And then I started thinking about it. And so I started following, even greater than that, is following what it means, the Black women, the African women who supported you and carried you through this store, and the African American women who carry products through to getting businesses wherever they are, and the investment that they have in seeing it remain exactly as it started and not wanting you to evolve. Is that something that you're constantly thinking about? How do I please my customer base? And then there's the business of fashion that my competitors are now H&M and Forever 21, and it's no longer who's selling at Masai Market because you're in a different space. What is that doing to
Yeah,
how you're
I mean,
thinking
I
about
think
it?
the dynamics here are very different, you know. So in
Mhm.
Kenya, we don't have, I mean, like 95% of the market is black, you know. So
Yes.
it's not that you're not, you know, I'm not worried in Kenya that anyone will say, oh, Vivo's selling, you know, they've gone outside of the sort um, of us and is trying to get customers elsewhere. I don't think that, you know, that would be an issue there. And I mean, nobody
Mhm.
seems to, you know, have, and if anything, there's pride when they see that Vivo's gone to neighboring countries and
Yes.
you know, stuff like that. I think here it's more complicated.
Hmm.
Uh, and I don't know. I mean, maybe I could throw the question back at you. Like, what are the things that you would advise that we should be aware of or concerned about? I mean, like I said, our vision is really, and when I say Africa, I mean Africa and the larger diaspora. I do
Yes.
think we should serve our own communities first and foremost, you know, and um, one, because we know what we need and want, so we're better
Yeah.
placed to you know, to tailor our products to our own needs,
Yeah.
um, but also because of the broader impact that that has, you know, when we come from countries or societies where we are still struggling to, you know, to make it. You know, now when I think about what is like the deepest vision or passion, not even passion, but the deepest purpose, for me, it's to see our people thrive. Do you know? And that, and in Kenya, that means jobs. That means livelihoods, dignity. Um, Nobody wants handouts. Like
No.
even when we come, I mean, and maybe this will sound crazy, but like
Hmm.
when I listen to the president speak at our launch, I, you know, he had a script he read from, but at the end he put it aside and he said, and it's in that little clip, and he's like, we are so immensely proud. And I think as much as, yes, it's great to be taken and shown, come see this great American organization, come, we're going to
Yeah.
give you this, we're going to, yeah, I mean, that's when we're not saying no to those opportunities, but at the same time, it's nice to be able to say, but look, we also have something that we can
Exactly.
offer. You know, we're not just here to ask and beg and take. We also want to partner. We want to provide. We want to give you solutions. Um, and so, yeah, I think there's a win-win opportunity. And what I've loved, in fact, I invited Rich to be at the launch, and he gave him a chance to speak to the president.
Yeah.
He had a chance. I shouldn't say I gave him. He was given a chance to speak to the president, because to me, his vision of creating Black wealth, and when he talks about Black wealth, he doesn't just talk about the US. He's like, when we think about the power of of what's within our control when we come together. You know, if you look across the purchasing power of the African continent, the African American community, the Caribbean, you know,
Mhm.
parts of Central America. I mean, we are powerful. We are,
Indeed, because of the resources and the people, the humans that we are.
yes, and even our money. As much as it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you put it all together, we have a very loud voice. We just don't see ourselves as
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, what, you know, what inspires me about Richard's story is that he has this very clear vision, and brings people together to look for ways. And he's always like, you know, follow the money. It's great to get accolades and to have hype around something, but like, where are people spending money? And if,
Yeah.
you know, and if they can spend it where it can come back to the communities, and his whole philosophy around what he calls community commerce. So it's not just looking at your customers, but it's like, who are your suppliers?
Uh-huh.
Who are you working with across your value chain? So I've become a lot more conscious of this kind of thing, whether, and it's however you define your community. It might be women, it might be the African diaspora, it might be African Americans, you know, it might just be people of color. But like, when we you know, knew we were coming to Essence last year, and I needed to find a 3PL, a warehousing partner,
Mhm.
to hold our stuff. I was like, where's the Black owned warehouse? You know, in
Yeah.
Atlanta. And I found one that was owned by Black women.
And
Um,
that is really interesting because, I host retreats in the US. I host an event called I Am Africa. And basically, I believe that Africa is a person, not a
mm,
place. Because when the person changes, everything changes,
yeah.
right? Communities change and all that. And that's where that came from. But what I'm finding with African Americans who are joining and saying, yes, I am Africa, is that they're realizing that in addition to just owning my heritage, I have a deeper responsibility to supporting the businesses that are coming up as African businesses. And there's two things that happened, and this has happened with me twice. When I bring them to Kenya, they want to stay at the social house and they want to stay at Hamosa in Karen because they know those are owned by Black women.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
interesting.
Yeah, the Marriott. They have Marriott points. They travel a lot. And it's not that I don't like Marriott. We like Marriott. But this is our opportunity
Mm,
to support a woman like me who is in business. And they
mm,
see her face and they know that she has not been seen before. And this is an opportunity for us to do that and then tell others.
yeah.
And that is what that investment, that feeling of investing in, buying a garment, buying, into someone else's idea. That's really what it is. And what I really loved, and as I've been following Essence and Shea Moisture and Honey Pot, especially because I found out that Honey Pot has a new owner, and it's to the tune of $300 million. That she created something that brought about that kind of wealth.
The other
I just
story, the other one you should look at is Mael,
I
because
saw that too.
yeah, that was
Exactly.
over $1 billion.
Over $1 billion, right? And you're thinking about it from that perspective. What I did understand, though, when we talk about the loyalty to the people who helped you build it,
Hmm.
and the sale of the business, is that if you're selling it or you're investing in other markets that are not necessarily Black markets, make sure that it's done for the growth of your business and other businesses, so that you're bringing along those who are
Yeah, I
starting
mean, I believe, you know, and this is again, I've heard Rich talk about these kind of things.
out.
I know when he sold Sandal O'Shea to Unilever,
Mhm,
um, I think there was some sort of pushback.
yeah,
However, the truth is that when your business gets to a certain scale, there are not enough who are you going to sell it to? There aren't enough Black owned holding companies that are able to buy $1 billion business. So,
yes,
but he's taken that, what he made from that sale, and turned it around and helped grow Honeypot, helped grow Mael, helped, bought Essence back, which had stopped being Black owned. He's invested through New Voices in, I don't know, close to 100 other businesses, which are all Black owned businesses. So
right.
sometimes you do need to, make a decision like that, like maybe sell it to whoever's willing to pay the value, in order to be able to then give back, turn around and give back. I mean,
Yeah.
when I think about Vivo, my dream, I don't know if this would, if it will ever even happen, but I would love for it to be listed on African stock exchanges. I would
I
love
did
it. I would love for anyone on the continent who wishes to like have a tiny piece of the business to be able
say
to
it.
buy. Yeah.
Right. And talk about that. What was the accelerator? I think I saw that there was an accelerator you were part of from the Nairobi Stock Exchange.
Yes, so it's called the Ibuka program, and
Hmm.
it's a program that's specifically designed to sort of identify businesses like Vivo and
Hmm.
walk them through that journey to become ready for listing.
Hmm.
The challenge is the Nairobi Stock Exchange is still very small, and there's not that much trading on it.
Yeah,
So I
but
think
it's a
we'd have to think through. I mean, and this is not something we're thinking of for this year. Like it's not a 3-week plan.
no, no, not.
Uh, yeah, but it would be a dream come true, and yeah, I'd love it. I'd love for more. The ownership people are feeling. Can we translate that into actual shareholding? I think that
Okay.
that would
Oh,
be
that now that's the way to go, because then you actually are talking about something and you can see the big picture because you're a shareholder,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's basically put your money where your mouth is,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's amazing. Now, how do you feel in terms of your faith in where all this is going? Is it steadfast? Are you shaken sometimes? What's going on there in terms of your faith and your
Um, I I think I try to remain faithful in that I believe that there's a reason these kinds of opportunities, I think God doesn't bring us to where we can't handle things, I think, but at the same time recognizing that not trying to do something like this is not going to be simple and straightforward, and it's not going to, well, I mean, maybe for some people it's easy, but like it's like raising a child, you know what I mean? Like, are you a mother? Do you have kids?
No, I don't have
Yeah.
kids. I have a library with 500 kids, but I don't have children of my own.
Okay, well, but I'm sure you've watched, I'm sure you're an aunt, you've
I
seen
am an aunt.
it. Raising children is complicated, you know what I mean? And you go through ups and downs and good days and bad days. And but I think the journey unfolds as it should in a way. And there's lessons and learnings as you raise a business too, as you coach people, as you build whatever you're building. There are so many um, moments, good
Mhm.
and bad moments. So I don't know whether the bad moments mean that I lose faith. I just know, okay, I need I need to breathe. I need to step back, or I need to call a friend. I need to cry if I have to cry. Um, but I don't, I've never, not yet have I gotten to a point where I'm like, this is a big mistake, and I should never have done it.
Yeah.
N-
I,
n- at no point throughout the Vivo journey has it gotten there. And I'm not saying that there are small mistakes we make along the way, but I don't believe that the big journey is a mistake. And it may end up pivoting, and it may end up looking a little different than we had initially thought. I mean, actually, to be honest, we didn't even have any idea of where this was going to go, so I can't even say that we're on track. um, but yeah, I think my faith is relatively strong.
yeah, that's great to hear. And how's your imagination? Where does it go from here? What do you see?
I Yeah, I imagine that this is just the beginning.
This is the beginning.
Yeah, I think the opportunity, not just for Vivo or for me personally, but for African brands, for African American brands. I think I think there is so much, 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 much more that we can do, so much more we can create, so much
Mhm,
more that we can offer, put in, you know, put in front of the world.
mhm.
I mean, right now it seems like a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, you know, I think in the next 20 years, it hearing another African brand or another African American brand opened up, another so many stores, or I don't think it will be news anymore. I think it will.
Ah,
Well, it will be news, but it won't be news in the way this is news. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Um,
Yeah. And that
be-
might even be next week. That might be the next time.
yeah, I think I really feel that there's a push behind, this is just, we just showed that, you can open a door here and come through. But I think the door's going to be pushed much wider open than
Then
we were able to push it. And yeah, I'm hoping Vivo will still be there to be like, yeah, we were one of the first pioneers in this area. But you know I mean, even now at home, there are very many brands that are, Kenyan brands that are doing beautiful stuff, opening amazing stores, creating
Mhm.
amazing products, telling stories in such beautiful ways. um, Look, I mean, Chebet's a lot younger. Her brand
Yeah.
is newer, and she had her plan to open her Denver store before she even knew about our plan. So I mean, it's just a question of which one happened first. But this would have happened,
Yeah.
and I think the time is right somehow.
The
This
time is
this
right.
state visit, and I'm sure there are many theories about why the red carpet was rolled out so much.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think that there is an increasing interest, even at the highest levels in the US, of
Hmm.
really developing much stronger partnerships with Africa. And Kenya is at the forefront of that conversation.
Yeah,
Uh,
our talent has always been recognized around the world. As I mean, you can go around the U.S. and just see where Kenyans are excelling. It's not just we're not just running, and we don't just have safaris. We have a whole lot, which is in the human resource,
and
the
I think
human.
the diaspora has a big role to play, in sort of being that bridge. And I think we don't recognize the 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 benefit of
Mhm.
having such a strong diaspora here. I mean, I've seen it now, I've felt it. Uh,
Yeah.
and and I think there's an eagerness, and I think sometimes a frustration because,
Hmm.
not maybe not necessarily being included in conversations, or people seeing. I think people see it as like, yeah, let's create a business for remittances, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's there. But I do think there can be a lot more. We can be the supply chain for a lot of what you're doing. Businesses that are here, we can. I mean, I'm already, like, my brain is already sort of thinking about how what sort of partnership opportunities there are,
Uh-huh.
um,
And I
and
think the
vice
one
versa.
thing.
You know what I mean? I mean, the trade isn't just one way. I mean, Kenya still imports more than we export to the US.
For sure.
So, I think when people are developing all those shelves, all those products you now are spoiled for choice on, I think they should be making their way home. If
Yeah.
people have designed products that work for black skin and black hair and whatever, there's 1.2 billion people
No, waiting to use those products,
to use those
right?
products, and vice versa. So I just think the more that we can explore working together, and not seeing the divide. I mean, China sells. There's one particular brand,
Hmm.
Shein. Have you heard of
Yes. Oh
They
God. May
they
I
are
should I pick out my Shein outfits?
they are every order you place for Shein or anybody places, that product's sitting in China
Yeah. So I
and
heard.
then it gets shipped here. We can be doing the exact same thing out of Kenya or out of anywhere in Africa.
Especially when I think about all the designers that I have seen who are developing the most beautiful, beautiful garments
Hmm.
and other products as well, right?
No, I mean, and of course, there can be many more stores, but that doesn't even have to be. And I think that's what technology. I mean, the DHL guy was talking about it at the panel,
Yeah,
but I think that's what technology allows someone,
someone
you
to
know,
do.
to do is you can offer. We want to make it so that Vivo products that are sitting in Kenya are available here online. They don't have to all be
You
sitting.
don't have to all be in the stores around the country. I get your point. The diaspora is loyal. The diaspora is very loyal. And I think you spoke to something is there's a feeling of not being included, but it's more of let's just continue to open the door wider and see where we can actually intentionally
Hmm.
participate and not just participate when there's an event. I think there are opportunities for us to actually, someone could create a channel that becomes the channel that is used to communicate what's happening, a directory or whatever it is. There's so many opportunities that can be created that I think if we're more intentional about it, then we don't feel that left out on both sides, right? This is a fascinating story for me. I think the key thing is that with every story, whenever you see a product, there's a person behind it. And that was the interest that I had in this because when you see the person and you know their story and you see how much they are like you know, they sat at the table. It might be a little different. You might have actually written a business plan versus two people who had a conversation and thought about the idea, but there's the ideation. You can resonate with that. The challenges, the fear, the faith, the burning desire to have something working. I think when we see the sameness in us, then we are able to say, if she did it, I too can do it. Right? Now, my final question for you is this. Are your parents both living?
No, my dad passed away 32 years ago. Yeah, but my mom is
Uh,
still around. Yeah.
what would your dad say about all this?
Oh, it's so funny. He was in my 20s, he would say to me, you should start a business. And I'd be like, what? I don't know anything about business. I have no interest in business. I
Yes,
think he would be very, very proud. I
he'd
think,
be
I
proud.
think he'd be showing off to people at home. Like, have you seen my daughter?
And
Yeah.
what, yeah. What does your mom say?
My like I said, my mom has always been my biggest cheerleader and fan. Like she thinks anything I touch will tend to go. Like, in her mind is, oh yeah, okay, wow, that's nice. She gets a kick out of it. I think she's never been that interested in business and
Mhm.
doesn't really necessarily, understand everything that has to go into, making these things happen. So, um, but she's very proud. I think she's in a little bit of disbelief. I mean, sometimes I say these things and she's like, "Really? Why? How? Like, how's that gonna happen?" But she's on Facebook, and so whenever I post something and people see it, and then she can see it, and she's like, "Oh!" She gets more kick out of seeing other people's reactions,
Yes.
especially if she knows them. She's like, "Oh, my friend, you know, commented on your page and said this and that and that," and she gets very happy. Yeah.
Typical mom.
Yeah,
Parents are
my
such a,
my kids. You didn't ask about them, but I think
oh, yes,
I
yes,
think
yes.
yeah, I think they're both in their what my older one just turned 20, my younger one's 18.
Uh-huh.
I think yeah, they've sort of lived with a working mother and a mother who's very involved in her business and stuff like that.
Mhm,
So that hasn't always been the easiest. But there's a
mhm.
certain pride they feel as well, and they might not say it to me, but when I meet their friends will say, "Oh, Saskia told me about your business," or "Minka mentioned,"
Ah,
so they'll say it to their friends.
so
But yeah,
they're proud too, but they just don't come to you and say,
in my yeah, I am worried that I go to the store. I've been there every day this week, and I'll be going there when we finish this call, and every day I'm just like, oh my god, is this gonna work?
no, that, what would you say if you knew that it was going to work? What would you do if you knew that it was going to work?
I would I would be a little less anxious. I mean, I would still work hard and do everything we need to make it work, but yeah, it's a bit scary. This is probably one of the scarier things we've done.
I know.
This
I
is
know.
bigger and scarier, and you know, more eyes on us, more expectation, and yeah, I think that's the thing. Like all the focus and excitement and the hype just increases the level of
Mhm.
of
But if it's now, if you look at the first store at the junction and
mm,
this store, is it the same level of trepidation?
no.
Not at
This is
all.
bigger.
This is big.
You know, sometimes ignorance is bliss. When we opened the one at the junction, we didn't even know what to be afraid of. Like it wasn't, and no one knew us, and no one really. If we had closed it in a year, I think we'd have gone quietly. Whereas
Yeah.
now it's sort of like, okay, yeah. I mean, if it doesn't work, we'll figure it out. We'll do something. But yeah, it's scary. It's scary.
Yeah.
So we definitely need the support. We need people to keep telling people about it, and hopefully, we're gonna, like I said, keep building the online offering. And I want to bring more and more brands to the
Oh,
online offering.
yes. So
If we
right
can
now you
figure
have,
out the logistics of how to quickly get product here and have the store be a base for where people can return it to if they don't want it, because that's always the thing. Like if you order from Kenya and you don't have any local presence and someone wants to return something, how do they do that? You can't return it back to Kenya. So we need to figure out those logistics. But I really want to have a much a lot more brands access the US market. And if we can help them in some way do that and test, and if then that shows them what more to do or where to focus uh,
mhm,
their efforts, then I think that's amazing. Yeah.
that
And
would be that would be great. And the names of the brands, I'm going to be speaking with some of them in the
okay,
coming weeks
yeah.
as well. And so you can, how many, what's the total number of brands?
So right now there's, well, three brands are our own brands. So the Vivo brand, the Safari brand, and the Zoya brand. So I
Mhm.
speak for all three. And then we have the Soko brand, which is a
Mhm.
jewelry brand,
Mhm.
which is actually owned by Rich Lou Dennis, but it's
I
run by,
knew them before.
yes,
I
yes,
knew them before. I looked at them before. Uh-huh.
yeah, and it's run by Gladys and Shamika.
Uh-huh.
So I hope you can speak to one of them.
I'll be
And then
happy to.
we have the Equetta brand,
I know. I met them.
and we have Anjiro, which is a home, and
Yes.
she calls it an ancestral luxury brand.
Yes.
um, and Waidera, which is a beauty, skin, hair, candles,
Hmm.
fragrances brand. And we've started carrying Kitukali, which is at home it mostly does shoes, sneakers, flip flops,
Hmm.
clothing, but we've started just with their t shirts and we'll probably expand the range of products. I think I've mentioned them all. Yeah, that's those
Yeah.
brands. Those are the brands in store, and like I said, I hope that we'll be able to carry a lot more brands online.
That's wonderful. The diaspora supports you. And when I say the diaspora, I mean, I always say, and I read this somewhere, that there are Africans around the world. Some of them are called Bahamians, some of them are called Trinidadians, some of them are called Jamaicans. But the
African
diaspora is
American,
African Americans. The diaspora is huge.
huge.
And just knowing that there's this turn where we are doing things in a different way, where we are trading and not seeking anything other than that, where we are exchanging ideas, goods, and services. I
Mm,
think they too want to be proud because they seek home,
mm,
and home is not just going to Africa and being on a trip. It is actually that feeling that you know that my people did this,
mm.
right? And so we appreciate you for having the courage to kick the door first in this way. We know that there are all of you who have other stores. I'm not talking about you who live in the diaspora who already has a store. I know there are many African stores around America. I get it.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about in the way that other large brands are doing it, working with the manufacturers in the way that you have. We honor you for having the courage to show us that it can be done, because when you shine, you totally give us permission to shine.
Wow.
And it's not perfection. We don't really care about the perfection of it. We appreciate that you bothered.
And I think honestly, Jean, thank you. We are deeply, deeply, deeply grateful for
Yeah.
all the support, all the encouragement, all the advice, all the shout outs, all the visits, the messages. We see it, we appreciate it, we don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
We want to reciprocate wherever we can. Like I said, the movement is in both directions. And yeah, I think this is just the beginning of many, many, many conversations and
Yeah.
hopefully many, many deals, many partnerships, many, you know, actual transactions that benefit everyone.
Yeah. Here's the deal. I'm going to ask for grace for anything that anyone thought in terms of we are not included, we are not, there's no communication and all that. She only had 4 weeks.
Apologies. Sorry. We were busy trying to figure out how to get stuff here, how to make it happen. We didn't even
She had four
really.
weeks. What have you done in 4 weeks? She had 4 weeks. So
Thank you.
we appreciate everything. And for those of you who have been listening, I know there have been people in and out. I didn't want to do the comments today because I'm never really able to keep up with the comments. But I just want you to know, Diana Corriri is so excited. Oh my God, I think she wore her dress to her daughter's graduation.
Oh,
Christine Rose Adero. I think there's a whole lot of good morning, Wandia, and they love you. As a
oh,
matter of fact, I'll let you read the comments on your own. And they're tagging their friends, and they love Africa should dress herself. Listen to this. Welcome to Atlanta, Wandia. Men's Vivo, please.
yes. It's coming. It's coming. We have a few pieces, but we're gonna do more.
Right, right. And Joanne Wangi said, 4 weeks, you really did good, right?
Oh,
This
thank
time I didn't do the comments that I know I always do, but they're all commenting. And I know this is, I usually am on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturday mornings. And today is not Tuesday. I know, but we're here. So a lot of folks will be listening to the replay just like they always do. And Monga is from Zambia. And Monga says, Wandia Gishuru, cheers to being bold. I am Zambian, married to a Kenyan, and didn't know the brand. Will definitely support.
you. Oh, thank
I
you.
have another Zambian for you. I'm telling you, that one is probably looking for you because she wants a store. But she's, I think, Zambian's leadership something. I forgot the name of it. But
Uh-huh.
she's looking for you. And now I've said it online, so she knows that I
We want
actually
to
told
come
you.
to Zambia. We want partners.
Yeah. I'm going to connect the two of you. Her name is Frida Brazel. I'll connect the two of you. But
Thank
all these ladies and gentlemen have been on back and forth. They want to know more about how this happened in 4 weeks.
Yeah,
And
not easy.
not easy. And the final comment was from Margaret Ndegwa. And I know Margaret, she's a client of mine in Kenya. And she said, congrats, Wandia. Keep shining. Keep
Oh,
shining.
thank,
Purity, my dear friend says, go Vivo. There are all kinds of people wishing you well. And just know that we care.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. So,
Thank,
guys, thank you very much for joining. Wandia, if you stay with me for a few minutes, I'm going to say bye. And then Wandia and I will get to talk a little bit more. We did this in 90 minutes. We talked that long, 90 minutes. I'll see you guys on Saturday morning. I believe I'll be talking to Chebet on Saturday morning. So I'll see you guys at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And I believe that's 4 p.m. East African time. Have a wonderful day. Bye. And just stay with me.
all right.
Just